Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Peak. And if you guys have listened to me for a while, you'll know that the room looks a little different. Matter of fact, I sound a little different. I think I may have bumped up some volumes here. Let me just adjust this a little bit. I don't want to blow you guys out. Um, so here in the podcast room, this is a bedroom that got turned into a studio. I needed some space. I needed some area that was going to allow me to do this a little bit better. And I got to be honest, I kind of like the look of this. I don't like the volume. Hang on. I bet I bumped this. There's this one knob right here. I bet I bumped. Let me turn that down. There we go. That's a little better. My range was a little off. Sorry, I was high end and you guys. Uh, so a lot of stuff happened this week. The last time I joined you guys was talking about the Bad Batch coming out with their latest episode, and today I tend to expand on that a little bit as another episode did come out. If you're looking at this on YouTube, you can see that the decorations that are normally right behind me are now across the room. Um, we are getting ready to paint this room soon, so there's a lot of things in movement and a lot of things that are getting adjusted around, and we're honestly thinking about doing something completely different in this room moving forward. So, just kind of let you guys know about that. I actually really like the way this looks. If you're listening and not watching this, check this out on YouTube under Joshua Peak. This will be episode 305. So, yeah, I really like the lighting from the window. I've been contemplating moving stuff around and like doing different walls as like accent walls and that kind of stuff. And I'm kind of digging this light. I wonder how I can replace this. Like if I were to move the whole room. Anyway, I'm ballpark thinking. My brain is like, hey, let's go off on a tangent. Speaking of tangents, my birthday was Monday. I turned 47, and like an adult, I had to work. So I went to work, had a full day at work, and it is interesting when you're not a kid anymore to have a birthday and think to yourself if you're excited or not. Like some people have the viewpoint of going, "Oh, well, thank goodness it's my birthday. I can celebrate the day I was born. Yay." Some people look at it as, "Oh no, it's another birthday." They have a nihilistic view of the fact that they're maybe not going to have a lot of them left. And there's a little bit of both when you're turning 47. There's a little bit of excitement. There's also a little bit of dread of going, wow, I haven't done enough. Like I feel like I've done a lot in life. Don't get me wrong. I've got to live life. I've got to go on vacations. I've got to see a lot of amazing places. I've talked on here about, on the YouTube channel, I've taken you guys along to go to Hawaii or to go to Alaska or, to fly in a helicopter over Vegas or over a volcano. I mean, there's a lot of cool things I've gotten to do, but also I don't know that it ever feels like enough, which is a good thing because then you continue to strive for something. Was it the Shawshank Redemption where the guy said, "You either get busy living or get busy dying"? I mean, it's kind of like that. You have to in life. You have to have something to look forward to. You have to have challenges. You have to have things that you want to do, and you got to go after it. Like you can't just sit back and go, "Well, I'm just going to waste time." And if you get to that point in your life where you do have some sort of reflection and you go, "Oh, I have wasted time. I've wasted a lot of time." There's no good feeling in that. There's no achievement in just living and breathing and that kind of stuff. And I get frustrated when I have loved ones or family or friends that tend to live their life that way. And I'm like, why are you even here if you're not going to participate? Like what advantage do you have? What opportunities are you giving yourself? Life is supposed to be about looking forward to things or achieving things or figuring things out or sharing experiences or something. I mean, something. We live in more and more of this world that's a lot like a virtual reality where we live our best lives on Instagram or we TikTok about dances that we like or some new thing that we figured out. And rarely do we show our lives how they really are. Facebook might be the closest to that, but then it turns into more here lately. It's nothing but politics. And I think we all have politic fatigue. Um, it's weird. I had said in the past that I felt like Donald Trump had achieved in making the Kardashians less relevant, and more people now are learning about politics and learning about how they can change their futures and how they can change their environments and how they can change their communities. And what we all really want is a distraction right now. We all want something to take our mind off of the fact that this, this chaotic stuff is going on. Um, I heard it said a long time ago that this may be true or may not be true, that Ben Franklin said the secret to a happy life is good health and a bad memory. There's something to be said for that. Um, the more that you learn, the more you start to have sleepless nights, the more you start worrying about things. And the more blissfully ignorant you are, the happy you are. So I don't know. I don't know what the right thing to do for me is. I don't know what the right thing to tell you to do is. All I do know is that for me, my pursuit is to learn. My pursuit is to try to challenge myself, to challenge the people around me, to think about life differently, to think about others differently, to think about their own spot in the world, in this cosmic universe as we fly around on a blue rock in outer space, to maybe have some perspective once in a while on the fact that the things that we do aren't life or death all the time. And it isn't a tragedy when your hair doesn't come out right at a haircut, or you don't get your way in a video game, or you don't get to watch your favorite team win a championship. Maybe it doesn't matter. It's fun to cheer about, but maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe you shouldn't get all worked up because one of your kids goes to a school you don't particularly care for. What does it matter? Yes, Treadaway, I'm talking about you. So anyway, Josh Treadaway has started his new job, and he is very, very busy doing that job and learning new things to do. And we planned on getting together for the 3-year anniversary of this podcast, and we're still going to try for that. Technically, the anniversary is May 18th of. I started this on 2018, so Tuesday should be the 3-year anniversary. Now, I may have to work. He may have to work. I think he actually emailed me and said that he's going to be off, but I may have to work. So we may have to do it some other time, or we have to do it via Zoom or something like that. I don't know. We're going to figure it out. But anyway, either way, happy anniversary to you guys. I'm glad you guys could join us. During this week, I am going to be moving things around in here and getting it ready for paint. And we're going to be thinking about how we want to set this room up when it's over with. And there's a good possibility that somewhere along here, I may have to miss a week just because I'm waiting for things to get back to normal. Or I may set this up all outside, and I may do one outside. Or I may do one without a video at all. I may have to do this from the phone alone. I did that on that car ride. I don't know if anybody listened to that episode. I do see the numbers. I mean, I know you guys listen, and I appreciate that. But yeah, I may have to do one that way. And that's fine. We'll figure that part out. I see a lot of stuff right now being advertised on different social media pages about equipment and stuff like that. And I don't know if I'm sure it's an algorithm that follows my keystrokes, and it's like, hey, he's interested in different microphones. Let's give him some ideas of some microphones he can check out. And I do want to change microphones at some point. I mean, this one is fine as long as I sit in just the right space. Because if I move my head over here, my voice gets lost. Or if I can tend to sit back a little bit, you guys can't hear me as well. I think I need something called a dynamic condenser mic with this other little device that clicks in between it called a cloud something or other. I don't know. I don't know the technology of it. I'm learning. But in it, I got to figure out how this stuff works. So there is that. There is lots of things I want to watch and listen to and enjoy and talk to you guys about. One of them I saw advertised this week is Bert Kreischer's podcast, The Bertcast. His latest episode, he has Adam Carolla on. Now, for a lot of people, you don't know who Adam Carolla is, or if you do know who he is, you may have seen him in passing, but you're not quite sure who he is by name. Adam Carolla was a radio DJ who met Jimmy Kimmel years ago and got a reoccurring role on K-Rock, the radio station. Now, it didn't start off with Adam wanting to be in radio. It started off with Adam just being a guy who needed a job, started working construction, and had a bunch of burner friends that just, they would get high or get drunk and they would just try to figure out how they were going to meet girls and stuff like that. And they all lived together and they were just scratching out a living for a long time. And at a certain point, Adam decided he wanted more out of life. He said, I want to do something different. I want to break out of this repetition, this cycle. So Adam Carolla started doing construction. He just walked up on a job site one time and they were working and he said, hey, you guys need help? And they said, no. And he said, cool. You mind if I sweep up? And they said, sure, kid, knock yourself out. So he started sweeping up. He said, and I showed up every day and they didn't pay me in the beginning. He said, I showed up every day and I just swept up. And at a certain point, they needed help. They said, hey, can you help hang drywall? And he goes, well, I don't actually work here. If you guys want to hire me, I can definitely help. And he's like, cool, we'll give you a job. You can help hang drywall. So he said, for a lot of days, I showed up and all I did was pick up heavy things and put them where they wanted them. And at a certain point, they needed help, hanging the drywall and mudding the drywall and sanding the drywall. And then after I got to be the drywall guy, they needed somebody to help out the carpenter. The carpenter needed help with some work. He's like, hey, can you help me hold this thing while I put it in place? Sure. Can you teach me some of that? Sure. And he became a skilled carpenter just by helping out, just by showing up every day and just by doing the work. And that carried over to the rest of his life because he also went to the local gym and was trying to be an amateur boxer. He had a knack for boxing. He actually has a movie that you can watch online called The Hammer that he made, acted in, directed in, wrote, and produced himself. But it's basically his story in a way with a twist. You'll see what I mean. So he kept doing this boxing thing. And after a while, he started teaching boxing to people at the gym. They needed somebody who could teach boxing. And he was good at teaching boxing. And one day, this kid comes in, Jimmy Kimmel, who's a radio DJ, works on K-Rock as their sports guy. And sports guy Jimmy had a bet with another guy on the station to box. Like him and some other guy that was a personality on the air had this celebrity thing where they were going to box each other for charity. And Jimmy's like, I need to learn some moves. So Adam's like, okay, cool, I can show you. And they hung out. And he said, we found that we hung out more than we actually trained for boxing. And the more we hung out, the more Jimmy kept saying, listen, I think you've got a talent. You really need to be on the air, man. You're funny. And he was like, yeah, okay, sure. And he goes, no, seriously, I'm going to get you in. I'm just going to get you in. You just be ready. Come up with a character. And he came up with this character called Shop Teacher Bertram, who was like an old grizzled man who had been through a few things. And now he's teaching shop to a bunch of high school kids. And he's messed up. And his shop teacher Bertram got on the air and started giving like movie reviews. And it was just an entry character that he didn't get paid for in the beginning. It was just a bit. Just, Jimmy's like, he went to his guys and he said, listen, I got this guy that's going to call in. Just let me have a little bit of freedom on this. And they were like, I don't know. If we don't like it, we're killing it. Well, it wasn't long, and shop teacher Bertram became the most popular character on the show. People would like show up for signings and stuff. And where's shop teacher Bertram? We need to find him. So him and Jimmy's friendship kept blossoming. And at a certain point, they started their own thing. They started a production crew and they came up with The Man Show. The Man Show was on Comedy Central. And all of this is because he has a motor inside of him and a desire to do more. And he followed up on it. Most people have an idea of something they want to do and they don't follow through. But Adam kept following through. And the more he followed through, the more he wanted others to follow through too. And Jimmy was that guy. Jimmy was just happened to be the opposite end of his battery that could make things work. They knew the right things. One of them or the other had the right inlet to say the right thing or show up for the right thing and do the hard work and do it over and over again until they were happy with what they had. And because of that, they had success. And that success bred other success. At a certain point, Howard Stern was on the radio all over America, and Howard made the jump from regular radio to satellite radio. And when he left, there was a void. So, Adam Carolla ended up getting a job for Kiss FM out in Los Angeles, and it became one of the biggest radio shows that was out there. And they did this for a while, and he had a good show. He was also on K-Rock, not K-Rock. He was on Loveline with Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew and him were on MTV, one of the most popular, television stations of that time. And they also did this show on K-Rock's late night radio. And Adam became like a household name for anybody who listened to that kind of stuff around then. But he didn't stop there. Like eventually he saw the change where radio was going away and they replaced him. They basically came in one day and said, listen, we're going younger, we're going Latino, and goodbye. Like they just washed their hands of him. And so he sat back and he went, okay, what's the next move? I got bills to pay. I got a wife, I got kids. And podcasting had just started. There were only a few podcasters out there. I think there was Adam Curry, which you guys have probably heard me talk about. Joe Rogan's had him on his podcast many times. Adam Curry is seen as the godfather of podcasting. He's the reason that podcasting is a thing. There was him. I think there was Mark Maron had started WTF, which now is one of the biggest podcasts out there. And like a few other NPR stuff. And then Adam Carolla was like, all right, put your money where your mouth is. And so far, my mouth has made me money. So I'm going to build this thing. And he built a studio. He built a recording space. He built the ability for him to have basically his radio show and put it online as a podcast. And it had guests, it had, segments, it had other people on. He grew the network. He actually has something called Ace Entertainment for Adam Carolla Entertainment, ACE. And on it, he has tons and tons of people underneath his canopy of, different personalities. They all bring in numbers. They all are able to advertise. He's able to pay people. It became a big thing. And it's still a big thing. He was able to revive a version of Loveline with the Adam and Dr. Drew show. It's a podcast. You can check it out. It's really, really good. It's just like Loveline, but it's just the two of them. And from there, he has a lot of other shows. Well, as time goes on, a lot of you who don't know, Bert Kreischer first told his machine story on Loveline. Adam was busy with something, and they were testing out some different people to try and maybe replace him because Adam was moving on to do other things. The MTV crowd didn't want to pay Adam, and they were like, "Nah, I think we're good. I think we're going to break loose and try out somebody else." So they had brought in other comedians to try out to see if they were going to be a good fit with Dr. Drew. And someone called in one day and said, "Hey, Bert, why don't you tell that crazy story about robbing the train in Russia?" And it was a classmate of theirs. It was somebody who he had robbed on this train trip while they were in Russia. And it's this crazy story about how he got involved with the Russian mafia. And it was just, it's sort of like Forrest Gump stumbles into a crazy adventure. And from that story, people got to know who Bert Kreischer was. Joe Rogan found out who Bert Kreischer was. Bert retold the story of the machine on that channel. And because of that, there's this crazy roller coaster ride where they became somewhat knowledgeable of each other. While the Man Show was going on, Bert was on a show on FX called The X Show, which FX was trying to compete with Comedy Central, and they were trying to make a show that was similar to The Man Show. So they were on the same lot, and they were filmed like right next to each other. But, it was one of those things where they were sort of in competition with each other for ratings. And I've heard Bert talk about the fact that they bumped into each other before. And, he's like always pleasant, hey, how you doing? Good to see you, that kind of thing. But eventually, you are in competition with one another. Well, fast forward to Bert was a guest on Adam's show, and I listened to it. It was really good. But they did it at Adam's studio. And I guess Bert had gotten a ride there and was going to get a ride home. And he was talking to Adam about, I'm going to call an Uber and to get me. He's like, I'll take you home. Where do you live? And he's like, I live over here. He goes, I grew up in that neighborhood. And so they drove by some of the same roads that Bert grew up on. And some of the schools that his daughter goes to is the same school that Adam went to when he was a kid. And he said, hey, you mind if we take a little detour? I want to see my old house. And he talks about how he lived in the garage, basically, and, grew up with nothing. And it's that drive and that motivation and that willingness to say, I believe in myself enough to take a risk all the time and to do the hard work that made Adam a success. And it's that same risk and that same reward type system that many people who succeed have. But Adam realized somewhere along the way, he said, I knew if I wanted to make a life better than what I had, one of the things I'd have to do is make better friends. I had to make smarter friends. I had to make friends who were achieving things. And it's not that I'm not still friends with my old friends. I am. He said, but at a certain point, if I wanted to succeed in business, I needed to make friends who were into business, because one of the things I learned along the way is anyone who succeeds in anything in life love nothing more than to help their friends figure out how to succeed, whatever that venture is. He's like, I made friends with Mark Cuban, and along the way, I asked him for advice, and Mark's like, sure, I'll help you. I got no problem helping you. What do you need to know? He's like, I made friends with Dr. Phil. I got questions for Dr. Phil, and he comes right up. Oh, sure, I'll give you a hand. That's true about anything in life, and I've learned that. Like I heard that like it was a lightning bolt into my brain, going, oh yeah, if you want these things, this is the work you got to do. This is the change in you that you have to do. And I took those from him. I learned from him, and I've tried to manifest that in my own life. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, maybe this will touch something in your life, and you'll be like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. There is some things I'd like to change, and there is some things I'd like to go after, and maybe that is the move I need to do. Maybe it is. Maybe this is the notice you needed to hear all along. Maybe it's just me saying it. So the latest, like I said, the latest podcast is Adam and Bert on the Bertcast. I haven't listened to it yet, but I am a huge fan of both of these guys. I know their history. I know what the conversation is going to be like, and I'm looking forward to listening to it. And I suggest you do too. I think you'll enjoy it. It's one of those that I know even before I listen to it, it's going to be good. So let me pivot for a second and talk about a show that came on Netflix. This is the Stuff I Heard podcast, so you can tell people, hey, I heard this on this podcast. There's a show that came out called Jupiter's Legacy, and it's interesting. It stars Josh Duhamel as like the main character, and it does this very strange flashback type thing where Josh Duhamel is supposed to be this old man with like long gray hair, and he's like a superhero who has a kid who looks like he's maybe in his late 20s, who's trying to be a superhero but is just not his dad. Like he's sort of living in the shadow of his dad, who's this ultimate superhero guy. And his name is like Utopia is his name on the show. And Utopia has problems. Utopia is a fragile man when it comes down to it. And he's made some pretty terrible decisions, and he's trying to live his life in the eyes of other people as doing the right thing. But he has this strange superhero thing about he doesn't want to get involved in politics. He doesn't want to dictate what their opinions are. He just wants to do the right thing to help people. And he also doesn't want to kill anybody. Like he's made this, super friends group where several of them are supposed to be like superheroes. And he's told them all, he said, all right, number one rule, don't kill anybody. And so what happens is, one of the first opening scenes, his son kills somebody. And it's sort of this hypocrisy of, it was the right thing to do, but also he shouldn't have done it. And you learn that there's some kind of conflict between him and someone who used to be his best friend. And you're like, okay, what's going on with him and the best friend? What is the conflict that went on? There's lots of superhero bad guys, and I don't know if superhero is the right word, super powered bad guys. And, I'm watching this, and the whole time I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is the escapism that I was wishing for. This is the thing where I don't think about politics and I don't think about what's going on. But once in a while, they'll mention something that has to do with today's climate, where there has to be with, we're ruining the environment and it's all going to go downhill from here, or, energy is at a premium and we're using up all of our energy, or they're tracking us now due to our genetic codes and blah, 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 blah. And okay, can't we just have a little bit of escapism and not talk about that kind of stuff? The show is interesting in the fact that this guy, Josh Duhamel's character, Utopia, has a son and a daughter. Apparently, the daughter is also very super powerful. And he's supposed to be teaching his son how to take his place, to be the next Utopia. Like if he gets old enough where he can't do this anymore, because apparently he's like 100 years old in this thing. If he gets to the point he can't do this anymore, who's he going to leave his role to? Is it going to be the son or the daughter? Now, the daughter apparently is partying all the time, and she's modeling and pissing her family off big time because she's just reckless. She doesn't want to be a hero. She wants to do drugs and drink and hang out and have sex, and and just be a normal person as much as possible. But also, she's sort of on a downward spiral of just wrecking her life and wrecking all the lives of people around her. And I think the way the story is going to play out, she's eventually going to be the next Utopia. Um, the story does not end that way. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the first season. If you haven't seen it, just skip this part because I'm going to talk about it a little bit. So she, at the very end of the show of the first season, she joins forces with a guy to commit a heinous crime, and you know, I don't think it's to the point that she can't walk away from it or rebound from it, but it is sort of one of those things you go, okay, is she going to end up being the bad guy and now her dad is the good guy and have to fight each other, or her brother has to fight her? And at what point does it get a little crazy? To me, the show really didn't get good until the last like 2 episodes. Because up until then, I'm just watching them flash back and flash forward and flash back and flash forward. And I'm like, okay, this story is a little exhausting. And I also don't care. I mean, I didn't really care about any of it until the last episode. You learn through watching it that one of the characters is sort of manipulating the whole thing. And when it's finally revealed, it's like, holy cow, I did not see that coming. It does have that element, which I mean, every show needs to have that element in order to be compelling enough to watch any of them. Unfortunately, they wait till the last episode to do it. Now, if anybody sticks around for the show, I think it's just going to be because Josh Duhamel is a good-looking dude, and they're going to be like, "Well, I'll keep watching. He's a handsome guy." They're not wrong, but I don't know that's enough to keep a show going. The plot twist at the end does make it compelling. It does make it to where I want to watch more. So, to the creators of Jupiter's Legacy, I kept watching it going, why this name? I don't get it. You do see why it's called that. They get their powers by going to some planet or moon right off of Jupiter, and something gives them powers, and I'm sure we'll learn more about that in season 2. But it's interesting. So, shift gears real quick. Let's talk about Bad Batch. Okay, The Bad Batch on Disney Plus came out with the latest episode. I talked about last episode where the statement was made by uh, one of the Bad Batch. He said that stormtroopers are born as numbers and they just want to be given a name as time goes on. And most people nowadays have a name and their goal is to be a number, which is totally wrong, and how we should be making a name for ourselves. Well, this episode was a continuation of what happens with the inhibitor chip that's inside of Crosshair. He sort of is the first iteration of the Death Troopers, these guys who are genetically modified to be uncaring, unfeeling, just following out orders, and no thought for themselves. Like it's just follow orders, follow orders, follow orders, no matter what it is. So they go onto a planet and they're supposed to be finding somebody, and they're on a pursuit of Saul Guerrero, which is Forrest Whitaker in the live action stuff. And Saul Guerrero is supposed to be the leader of this resistance group. In the pursuit of Saul Guerrero, they come across some civilians and some soldiers of his, and basically once he kills all the soldiers, there's nothing but civilians left, and he basically gives the order for them to be executed. One of the other guys that's supposed to be with them has his own opinion and says we shouldn't be killing these people. They're just civilians, and he kills them. Crosshair kills the guy, and then he turns to the other one. He said, "Follow orders," and they do. Now, there is the crazy part of Omega is with the other Bad Batch, Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, and Echo, and she tells him that this is not him. This is just the programming, and there's going to be a hard conflict between them at some point where they're going to have to decide whether or not he's worth redeeming with all of the things he's doing. Is this him, or is it just the program of the chip inside of his brain? And we see a little bit of this conversation sort of spring up whenever Wrecker is they're in a crash landing, and Wrecker says, he keeps saying, my head hurts, my head hurts, my head hurts. And Tech and Echo are working on building something to neutralize this inhibitor chip, because they're hoping that once they get to Crosshair, they can just put this thing on him, and it'll stop the interference in the programming from this chip telling him what to do. But I think it's going to come out maybe next episode that Wrecker is starting to feel this inhibitor chip tell him what to do. And this may be sort of one of those shows where each episode, each one of them is going to fall deeper and deeper into this until finally nobody's left except for Omega, and she has this thing and she has to put it on one of them to save the day. I don't know. Listen, the blueprint is there. I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen. But this was a pretty cool episode. This did have Omega helping the guys out. She wants to be part of the crew. She wants to help out. They want her to go home. She proves that she's valuable to them. She wants to learn. And so I think we're going to see more of her do that kind of stuff, which is cool. It's sort of cool, especially since this is a cartoon show and kids watch this. And maybe it'll inspire kids to think to themselves, hey, maybe I can be special. Maybe I can do something special, even though I'm a child. Maybe there's something I can learn. And I hope that's the message they're trying to get across. Because, listen, we're all valuable, whether we realize it or not. We just have to live up to our potential. Oh, and boom, I made it full circle around to Adam Carolla. How about that, folks? See what I did there? I didn't even plan on that. That was like I just came around a full swing like a golfer or something, or Babe Ruth pointing to the fences and going and hitting it out of the park, man. All right. That's it. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you to everybody who's been listening. Thank you to all who have subscribed. I appreciate it. I do read the comments, even the ones who just write, "You suck." Thank you. All those who write me and say that I suck. Whatever. 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 You can only do so much, right? The joys of the internet. It's like walking into a drunk room and going, "Hey guys," and then just listen to the comments. So anyway, thank you for all who've been listening and subscribing and telling me hi. And if you have something to add to the podcast, please let me know. If you want to be on the podcast, we can always do one of these via Zoom, and we can do whatever. So appreciate every one of you. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends. And as always, here's the cow.
Tell you guys to give me more likes. Give me more likes.